Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Our top stories today. Israel has agreed to let aid get into Gaza through Egypt, while President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi blames Israeli bombardments for not operating the only border crossing. Kenya releases the names and photos of terror suspects, part of the al-Shabaab network. They're allegedly responsible for committing attacks in Lamu County and the Boni enclave. And have you heard of African penguins? Its eggs are a delicacy, but the Cape penguins are about to be extinct. Israel has announced that food, water and medicine would be allowed to enter the Gaza Strip. Pressure has mounted for aid to be allowed in through Egypt's Rafah crossing with Gaza. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi rejected what he described as the forced displacement of Palestinians into Sinai, but said he did not close the crossing.
I reaffirmed that Egypt continues to receive humanitarian aid and is committed to transferring that aid to the Gaza Strip through the Rafah crossing when conditions permit, taking into account that Egypt has not closed the crossing since the outbreak of the crisis, but developments on the ground and the repeated bombings by Israel of the Palestinian side of the crossing have prevented operations.
وتكرار القذف الإسرائيلي للجانب الفلسطيني من المعبر حال دون عملي.
And it's not yet clear when Gaza will be able to get aid from Egypt. But the agreement comes after days of shuttle diplomacy led by the US president and a day after the world reels in shock at the attack on the Al-Ali hospital Tuesday night. Hundreds of people are said to have been dead. Caroline Lamboulé reports.
Some of these trucks have been parked here near Egypt's border with Gaza for nearly a week, unable to enter the blockaded territory.
We're wearing black shirts out of solidarity. They haven't opened any road. We won't leave until the aid is delivered to them. We're not leaving, not leaving, not leaving.
We've been in Al-Arish for 5 or 6 days packaging aid and doing everything we can so that this aid enters and reaches the people in Gaza. People there are dying. We'll stay here until the end. We won't move.
Technically, it's the only crossing of the Gaza Strip that is not controlled by Israel. But the Israeli military spokesperson said over the weekend that any movement or crossing to Egypt had to be coordinated with the Israeli authorities. On Wednesday, the office of the Israeli Prime Minister said it would allow some materials to enter. This followed days of shuttle diplomacy led by the US president.
In light of President Biden's request, Israel will not prevent humanitarian assistance from Egypt as long as it is only food, water and medicine for the civilian population located in the southern Gaza Strip or which is evacuating to there, and as long as these supplies do not reach Hamas.
When this will happen is still unclear. And the statement made no mention of fuel, which was cut off by Israel following Hamas's deadly attack on October 7th, in addition to food and water supplies. The announcement comes a day after the world reels in shock at the attack on the Al-Ahli hospital on Tuesday night. It's thought to have killed hundreds of people. Palestinian officials blamed it on an Israeli airstrike, while Israel said it was caused by a failed rocket launch by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad faction.
And this attack on the Gaza hospital has provoked outrage and condemnation from around the world, including from several African countries and the African Union. In Tunisia, pro-Palestinian protesters rallied outside the French embassy in the capital. And according to several sources, a synagogue with the mausoleum of Rabbi Youssef al-Marabi was ransacked in Gabes. Security has been tightened around Hebrew schools, synagogues and Jewish cemeteries in the country. The Kenyan government has released the names and photos of 35 terror suspects believed to be behind recent al-Shabaab militant attacks, especially in the coastal Lamu County. The terrorist organization has stepped up its attacks in Kenya in recent months, entering the country through Boni Forest, which borders Somalia, which makes it difficult to apprehend them. Olivia Bizot has more.
So the majority of the suspects are Kenyan, but there are also Tanzanians, Ethiopians, Somalis, as well as a Bangladeshi and a British citizen on that list. Now, they've been accused of planting improvised explosive devices in the coastal county of Lamu and of killing civilians. They've also been linked to the attack on an American military base in Manda Bay in Lamu County back in 2020, which killed 3 American soldiers. And now authorities have posted photos of the suspects online, as well as on various local print media outlets, and they've said they will offer substantial rewards to anyone who can provide information on the whereabouts of any of these suspects. And now Kenya's Ministry of Interior has also said that these suspects are part of al-Shabaab. Now, the terror group has really stepped up its attacks on Kenyan soil in recent months in the coastal and northeastern regions of the country. Now, the first attack by al-Shabaab in Kenya took place in 2011, and that's when Kenya joined the fight against the terrorist organization. And ever since, the East African country has faced several acts of terrorism from the extremist group. The deadliest of these attacks took place in 2015 when al-Shabaab stormed Garissa University College, killing 148 people.
Uganda President Yoweri Museveni vowed to track down those responsible for the deaths of a safari guide and 2 foreign tourists who were honeymooning in a national park. Ugandan authorities accuse the Allied Democratic Forces of killing the couple, a South African and a British national, and their Ugandan guide on Tuesday evening near the Queen Elizabeth National Park. Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attack. Now to Liberia, which is heading for a rematch of the 2017 presidential runoff between incumbent George Weah and opponent Joseph Boakai, with official provisional results on placing them neck and neck. The process of announcing the results has been slowed down by several incidents, including some ballot boxes destroyed and others stolen on voting day. Justin Baidu gives us the latest.
The process of announcing the results from last Tuesday's elections has been slowed by several incidents of violence in many of the polling stations where the elections occurred. In Nimba, for example, which is the country's second largest county, several ballot papers and election materials were either stolen or destroyed. This forced the Electoral Commission to hold the elections in 2 particular polling stations. The Commission says it would now organize separate elections in these 2 polling stations this Friday. The numbers in these stations aren't significant enough to affect the result in either the senatorial election or the presidential election. But the Commission says it will go ahead and organize this election before it would now officially announce the runoff, which is expected to happen in the next 2 weeks. In the Montserrado and Grand Cape Mount counties, for example, several political party observers were arrested, alleged to have involved in election violence or fraud. The West African Regional Bloc, ECOWAS, has admonished the 2 key leaders, which is President Weah and former Vice President Joseph Boakai, to rein in their supporters and ensure that the election process ends peacefully. The elections has been hailed as having been organized peacefully and transparently by a majority of the independent observers who came in from across the world.
Now, we don't really associate penguins with the continent, and yet the Cape penguins has once occupied the African shorelines in large numbers. Its eggs were considered a delicacy decades ago. However, the species are being classified as endangered to the point where it might become extinct. Caroline Dumais and Eunice Masson explains.
Out on the streets in what could be a last-ditch attempt to save an iconic animal, supporters gathered to march in Simonstown, close to the largest African penguin colony in the Western Cape. The African penguin is endangered, and activists and experts warn that their very existence is in peril.
I know we've got those stats of in the next 12 years they're going to go functionally extinct. I can't imagine South Africa without our African penguin. It's our penguin. We take pride in having one species that occurs here.
Today, only small penguin numbers gather on the region's beaches. It is estimated that by 2035 there won't be enough penguin pairs for the species to reproduce. Scientists blame commercial fishing. Overfishing results in a disruption to habitats, and penguins simply don't have enough fish to eat. Colonies are also suffering from extreme weather. In this rehabilitation centre in Cape Town, distressed penguins are brought in every day. This group's nests were destroyed by floods in September when the chicks could not yet swim. Without human intervention, they wouldn't have survived. They will be released in a few weeks. The number of penguins needing assistance is increasing.
So we've admitted 260 chicks this year. Our admissions are due to malnutrition, emaciation, or severe weather conditions.
Human behaviour are also to blame. The Two Oceans Aquarium in Cape Town spearheads a campaign aiming at awareness and education on public behaviour at penguin sites.
We need to educate people, and we want to teach people as much as we can about what is happening out in the water and what people are able to do to help save the African penguin.
A century ago, over 1 million African penguins swam in the waters of southern Africa. It is estimated that there are now fewer than 50,000.
And that's it for this edition. Thanks for watching Eye on Africa. Stay tuned for more news.